Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Mason. I'm the Director of Special Projects for the Arizona International Film Festival, and I welcome you this afternoon to a very, very exciting discussion of an unbelievable film that was made in Arizona. And that's our topic, that's our main theme, Made in Arizona. And we have the perfect example to discuss, 8,000 feet and up. And we have the core of the creative team with us today. I'm just delighted to have them with us. I thank you for tuning in. If people in the Zoom audience have questions for us, please go to your chat session and type it in. We're going to talk to the people here. They're going to introduce themselves in just a minute. We're going to talk half an hour, 40 minutes or so, and then we'll open things up to Q&A from you. So if you've got a question, please type it into the chat. So again, thank you so much for coming. What I'd like to do right now is start with the director, Mr. Williams, and have him tell us who he is, what his role in the film was, and what he's been doing the last couple of years. Alan.
Well, my name is Alan Williams, and I'm the director of 8,000 Feet Up. For the past couple of years, I feel like for the past couple of years, I've been making 8,000 Feet Up. But before that, I produced a feature called The Drama Club, and I was also directed a pilot, actually, where I met Avai as a cinematographer for a show called You Only Live Twice. And that pretty much has taken up my time for the past couple of years.
Excellent, thank you. Bryn.
Hi, I'm Bryn Booth, and I played Willow in the film. And I'm a Tucson-based actor, and I, for the last few years, I've been doing a lot of plays. I'm an ensemble actor at the Rogue Theater here in Tucson, and so we do shows year-round. And I've been doing a lot of several local films, student films. And one of them actually got me in touch with Avai, and that's how I landed here.
Excellent. Avai.
All right. I'm Avai D'Amico. I was the producer and cinematographer. So I organized the thing, and then I pointed the camera at Bryn. For the past few years, I've been making a number of indie features. We've got two recent ones that both got distribution. One's called Positive and one's called The Tiny House Christmas. So you can find those online. They're both comedies. 8,000 Feet Up was the first thriller that I've done as a feature. There were still some comedic elements, but it was a cool change.
Excellent. And the very smart one of all, who's got the film festival logo behind him. Please, sir, tell us who you are and what you did on the film and what you've been up to lately.
My name is Hamdija Ajanovic, and you can call me H for short. I'm the composer of 8,000 Feet Up. For the last few years, I have been working on some independent movies, short ones and feature-length ones, as well as some video games for various video gaming platforms. Anything and everything that has to do with music, I'll do my darnest to be there.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. We're going to get into the film. Well, we're going to get into the film here, but in a kind of a roundabout way a little bit. Last night, I'm going to guess a whole bunch of people watching this afternoon saw the film last night. It was shown at the Mercado Outdoor Annex. All of the people who just spoke were there, in addition to about, what would you say, maybe 150, 180 other people. We had just a tremendous evening last night. And before we get into the film with some questions, some specific questions, I'd like to ask each of the four what you thought about this kick. the show last night, and I think it's interesting. Before we went live, we were just talking to Bryn, for example. She hadn't seen the film in its complete form until last night. So that sure was a big night for her. So why don't we start with Bryn?
Uh, yeah, so I was extremely nervous because I have no clue how I turned out on camera, um and it was my first ever premiere, so it was a big night for me. But I knew that we had such a talented crew, and I trust the talent of the crew, so I knew it was going to be good and well done. But it's still just nerve-wracking, and like I said, it's very jarring to suddenly see yourself really big on screen. Um, but I was really happy with how it turned out. I think the cinematography was beautiful, and I I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Hamdi, what was your reaction? H.
Um, every time I go to watch a movie with the music that I compose for it, it's always a little bit of there's a lot of excitement about it. There's a little bit of anxiety attached to it as well, and it's just a very surreal experience. I mean, you spend a lot of time in your studio making the music for this, for a movie. You watch these scenes over and over again, so you're familiar with every little detail on that screen. But then you get the chance to see it, all in one piece, and all done with color correction and sound design and music and everything. And it's just a very, I think Alan said it best last night. This is really what we live for. It's to see that on a big screen, to finish, to see the finalized and product and a done movie on the big screen.
Absolutely. Avai.
It was cool. I was really glad that so many people were there because I've worked so hard, and I know everyone else has worked really hard too. And it was great to just be able to share our work with that many people. I wasn't sure how well attended it would be, so I was just thrilled that so many people were there to watch our movie because we worked so hard on it. So that was really cool for me. I was glad. The whole reason we made the movie is so people would watch it. Well, and because it's fun making movies, but also we want people to watch it.
And Alan.
I was pleased. I mean, I was pleased, very pleased with the audience reaction. I know that we chatted earlier about people reacted in the right places. You're sort of sitting there chewing your nails and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best, and something happens and the audience reacts, and you're like, okay, good, we can check that one off. That worked, And so we've sort of lived this film, and we know every frame, and now we're hoping that everybody gets it. So we were nervous about it, but I was pleased with the audience reaction. I think if I had my way, I always want things to be perfect. And I was a little concerned with the projection was a little dark. And so I was getting myself all wound up with stuff, and I just needed to relax and enjoy the experience a little bit. But overall, I was very, very pleased.
Thank you very much. So let's start to get into some more substantive things. Alan, you were quoted as saying at some point that regarding this project, that because Avai was involved, you had to make this movie. I guess you guys have had a little bit of history collaborating, and he was attached to this project, and you had to do it. What was going on there?
Well, so it's interesting. I told this story to somebody last night. So here's the thing. I've got a couple of other feature projects that have been in various stages of development over the years, and they're much larger budgets, big budgets, and it's hard. It's really, really hard convincing very rich people to give you their money to make your movie. And so it was this roller coaster ride that I've been on for weeks had turned into months, and months had turned into years, and so on. And I was sort of lamenting about that to someone. And this filmmaker kind of grabbed me by the collar and said, you know, you need to snap out of it. You need to stop worrying about movies you can't make right now and focus on a movie that you can make. And Avai and I had worked previously on a project together, and we worked really, really well together. And if anybody knows Avai, when he sets out to make a movie, the movie gets made. He just gets it done. And so I called him and I said, let's do something. And he said, well, I've got this. And I read that and I went, wow, we can totally do this. And we can do this our way on our terms. And that's where we sort of came up with the idea that we need to feature local talent as much as possible. But I will tell you, the clincher that did it for me, in all honesty, as much as I love Avai, with what the done deal for me was when he told me that he had cast Bryn, because literally the week before I had seen her in a short film from another filmmaker friend of mine. And I watched his film and I said, where in the world did you find this actress? I just thought, man, I would love to work with her someday. And a week later, I'm having a conversation with Avai about Bryn. And that for me, I'm like, okay, whatever it takes, we will make this movie. And that's kind of how, that's the fast version of how we got to where we were at.
So Avai, where did this project come from that Alan, you presented to Alan, and how did, and I want to ask this to you too, Bryn, how did Bryn Booth get involved?
Do you want to go first, Avai?
Go for it.
I had been last minute cast in this other independent film that a director had hired me to do in Tubac, and because the actor she had dropped out, and so someone referred me, so she cast me. And a person named Danny on that crew, he and I were talking about like films like The Shining and just having a good conversation. And he said that Avai was looking to make a movie and that he would put us in contact with each other. And then Avai reached out to me, asked me to submit some video auditions, because that was still in the time of that was like late 2020, where we still didn't have a vaccine or anything like that, so still video auditions were the thing. And yeah, and then Avai offered me the role.
And again, Avai, how did you get where did the script come from?
So I wanted to make this movie years ago, before there was any kind of pandemic or anything. I had been watching, I watch a lot of other movies, and when I'm watching movies and aspects of them stand out to me, it's usually because it's like, oh, that's something I can do. That's something I can like achieve and do myself. And I can like try to make movies that emulate or achieve goals that I've appreciated about other movies, and then just kind of adapt that. So I really wanted to do something out with a really small cast just up on the mountain. And I'd pitched the story idea to a couple other actors who turned me down, and then they both ended up moving out of Arizona to pursue acting elsewhere. And then when the pandemic happened, I was like, okay, well, I had this other movie that I wanted to make, but I can't make it now because it would require a bunch of people to be in the same room, and we have to socially distance and have like limit how many people we put together. So my mind kind of came back to this other idea of, oh, we could just do this movie about like these people camping up on the mountain and they cross paths. So I reached out to someone who'd asked me about screenwriting, and we kind of bounced some ideas around and started putting together a rough draft. And then I got, it went through various rewrites, and we ended up with the script. Well, we didn't end up with the script that was the movie you saw. We ended up with the version of the script before that. And then I got Alan involved, and Alan had a bunch of other ideas, and he had ideas for implementing more twists. And Bryn had a lot of ideas too about like, oh, well, in this scene, it doesn't make sense for my character to do this. So what if we did this, and kind of took it that way? So it was really a collaborative writing process. And we brought Daniel on board, and he had a lot of personal stories from his military training that we could pull from to make the conversations feel like real. And yeah, we ended up making a movie.
I want to ask H a question, but before that, let me get to you, Alan and Avai, probably on this one, because it's in your logline, tagline for the movie. You talk about this as kind of a Hitchcockian thriller.
Mhm.
And last night you talked a lot about watching a lot of Hitchcock and doing this and doing that. When you say it's a Hitchcockian ode, homage, what do you mean? What's in the film that's like Hitchcock?
Well, aside from what Hitchcock is known for is the suspense and intrigue. Honestly, word for word, quoting myself when I called Avai, I called him and I said, okay, so we're making a Hitchcock movie, first of all. And one of the reasons why was there's sexuality, but there's no sex. There's violence, but there's no blood. And so that can be interesting done correctly. And I think that's probably one of those things that people don't think about when they think of Hitchcock, is that he creates suspense and intrigue and violence, and his movies can be very sexual if you are looking for it, if you're paying attention. There's a lot of that going on, and he's very clever about how he moves and navigates through those waters. And so to me, I just felt like the suspense with keeping the audience on the edge of their seats, wondering what was going on. You knew something was going to happen. You just didn't know what it was. And then it hits you and you're like, why didn't I see that coming? Or I knew the whole time that she was the one, or something along those lines. But if there's that surprise. So I felt Hitchcock from the moment I read the script. And then and again, when I was reading the script, I didn't know how it was going to end, but I knew something was coming. And so when I turned the page and read that page, I'm like, oh, all right, you got me there.
Well, I don't know that we want, for those who haven't seen the movie, I don't know that we want to give the ending away,
Yeah, you gotta
but
be
somebody
careful.
on this panel here does some nasty things. Okay, H, how did you get involved? Who approached you, Avi or Alan? And what did you see in the pitch that got you interested?
It has been quite a few years that I have known Alan for quite a few years. We were friends on Facebook. I think we participated in a panel at the Arizona Film Festival at some point years ago, and I knew that I really wanted to make a movie with Alan. So at some point I said, if you ever make a movie, I'd like to compose the music, and you want someone, you want a good composer. Hey, here I am. And I think that's we left it at that for a while, and then eventually Alan approached me and said, hey, would you be interested? We have a movie. Would you be interested in doing maybe a 2 scenes test to see what you think of it? What kind of music you would like to you think would fit in the movie, and then we'll go from there, which I gladly did. Now, the scary part of that was that I got 2 scenes and I had no context of the movie whatsoever. So it was basically just interpreting what's going on in those 2 scenes and attaching, imagining what's around it and whatnot. So apparently I was pretty close to what they had in mind. So when I submitted my test music, they I guess they liked it, so they asked me to compose the entire movie. But I think that what really got me to it is besides that I really wanted to work with Alan. What got me to it that even in those 2 scenes that had that were not color corrected, that the sound was not mixed, to the full extent, that, there was a lot of, post-production still going on. You could see that the movie was very, very, very good. It was a high quality movie, a very good picture that was on the, that was behind it. And I was, I was very happy that they chose me as a composer. And I was very, very happy to work on it, because I'm really, really proud of what we turned out.
Bryn, let me ask you the same question. What was in this role that you responded to? What was there as an actress that you said, this is going to help me in my development or my learning? What did you see in the part?
I loved how layered Willow was. I loved that there's this squeaky clean veneer, but there's something underneath all of that. And that's always an actor's dream, having a character where you get to have all those layers and you get to have scenes where you give those subtleties and that nuance in that scene. And we had a lot of fun with that, especially with Willow. And so I liked, sorry, my cat is deciding to interrupt our meeting right now. But that was what drew me to her. And I found her to be very interesting. The stories that she would tell, and she's very much a storyteller. And she's very much about being in the moment with Silas. And there's a lot to her. Yeah.
Avai and Alan, Avai, you said last night, I've read things that you said that you wanted, this was in a way, a very typical low budget independent movie, no budget, a limited cast and crew that might be a little on the inexperienced side. You wanted to make this in Tucson. You wanted to make it with all local everything. And you wanted to make it look like this was a big budget with no budget. What was going on here, and some of your thinking as to why so connected here to Tucson, and why the urge to put the Tucson production community on the map, so to speak?
Oh, Vi, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just I've been making movies in Tucson for a couple of years now. And it's really incredible how everything we need is right here. We have screenwriters in Tucson. We have cinematographers in Tucson. We have directors, actors, composers, editors. Everyone you need, we just have plenty of them right here in Tucson. And there's so many locations. We could have done something in the desert. It was summer, so that was kind of why we didn't want to do something in the desert. It would have been really warm. But for half the year, you could shoot something in the desert. We shot this up on the mountain, and it's just, there's so many stories we can tell, and there's so many people who are creating stories and want to direct and want to compose and want to record sound and want to act. And it just, we can put something together, and if we all try really hard to just make that commitment to each other, okay, so we don't have a budget and we don't have a lot of money, so what are we getting out of this? Let's create something that we can all be proud of. Let's give Bryn a role that she can have a lot of fun with. Let's give Alan characters and scenarios that he can get really creative with how he directs them. And we can put this all together, and at the end we have this movie that we're all really glad we did, because it really showcases what we can do right here with local people. And it would be fantastic to have budgets, and it'd be fantastic to have famous people come out and join us, but you can still make a movie with just what you have. If you inventory the people you know and the places you have access to, you can tell stories using that, and it'll be engaging and it'll be effective. So there's not any reason to not just go out and make a movie with whatever you have and whoever you know.
Specifically with this film, what were the first steps that you did to enact that objective?
Well, the first steps we took was what kind of story do we want to tell, and where can we tell it? I have tons of movie ideas, and I write them all down, and I work with different screenwriters to see who seems to be interested in what ideas. Sometimes other people bring an idea to me, and once we like a story, my next question, I start thinking about it from like a logistics standpoint, like where can we film this? If it's a great story, but it's about like people robbing banks and then getting away in escape helicopters, I don't own a bank and I don't own a helicopter. So maybe even though it's a cool story, I don't want to like pursue that right now. So I try to pursue things that are logistically feasible. What can we actually do? And I get the locations figured out first, because I would hate to waste any actor's time saying, hey, can you audition for this part? And then they take the time to like prepare something and send that to me, only for me to be, oh, sorry, we can't make the movie because I couldn't get access to a bank and a helicopter. So that the kind of the order that I go is story, locations, and then figuring out who can participate.
Avai, does that mean that did you, for lack of a more elegant way of expressing it, did you function as well as kind of the location manager, location scout? Did you spearhead the casting? I mean, or were other people brought in to do some of those things?
Yeah, I did pretty much everything. I view producer as sort of an all-encompassing credit, and I take it on myself. If I'm the producer of this movie, I have to produce this movie, and the movie has to get done. And if I can find someone to act like Bryn, and someone to do the music like Hamdija, and someone to direct like Alan, then fantastic. But if I can't like find a cinematographer, I'm gonna shoot it myself, which is, cinematography is my favorite part anyway, so I love that. For the location scouting, my other camera operator, Charles, we would go camping together anyway. So we just went camping together with cameras, and that's how we did our location scouting. But yeah, it's any aspect of the production, I either had to find someone else to do it, or I had to assess whether I could do it myself or find some creative solution to solving a problem.
Alan, would you like to make some comments here about the whole process of kind of waving the flag, raising the flag for Tucson, and finding local people to do what you wanted to do?
Yeah, someone had once, I don't know, remember who it was, but someone had once said to me, or I heard somewhere, that you make movies so you can make the next movie. So, I mean, the whole point is moving, you do something so you can go move on to do the next one. And so since I got out of film school at the U of A in 1993, I've been part of this effort to keep independent movie making here alive and moving forward. And that's going to require teamwork and collaboration because there's limited resources, but the resources exist, but we have to work together to make it happen. And I set out, my goal on this film was to show that we could make something really big with really small resources. And hopefully that puts us in a position wherever this movie goes for someone to come along and go, wow, that was really amazing. What else can you do? Or how can we be involved? And that gets us to the next stage and so on. I mean, making, nano budget, this wasn't a micro budget, this was a nano budget film. Making nano budget movies is not necessarily sustainable. We want to move forward where we can create a product that generates a return on investment that gets us to move on to creating an even bigger product. It's not about making money, not about getting rich. It's being able to create our art and move forward and create more art. And so we decided that rather than just do like everybody else is doing, and incidentally, we haven't done anything revolutionary here. We're making an independent movie just like every other independent movie maker is doing. But our hook on this one was, look, let's make sure that everybody involved is Tucson based. So we can show the world that we can do this here. We'd like to do it with you, but we can really pull this off. And that was probably my driving motivation.
Well said and excellent. Bryn, tell us how you got into this role. How did you prepare for it? How did you and extend that a little bit with your acting? I mean, your other actors rehearsing. How did Alan get you guys? Did you rehearse a lot? Was it improvised? Did you a lot of retakes? How'd you get into the role?
So we did have rehearsals. It would be kind of like every Friday because we would shoot on the weekends, and it would be like every Friday before that. We would get together and work out the scene, and Alan would have us go from one extreme to the next, and then we would sort of shave down. And that was really great for Willow. She's a very dynamic person, so it was great to go from one extreme to the other. And so we did have rehearsals, and I don't know if we necessarily did a lot of retakes, but we did a lot of takes to find diversity in the film. And there was some improv in there, not a ton, but there was one scene like during a campfire scene where they started to pan the camera back, and Furman and I just ended up having this really funny conversation while that was happening. So there was some improv there, but not a ton. Most of it was all scripted. And just like any other actor, there was a lot of character work that came beforehand. There was figuring out exactly who Willow was, what my subtext was, and how much I wanted to reveal that to the audience, or what parts of that did I want to keep secret and just keep for myself. And Alan and I would have our own like little secret conversations about it. Like, okay, Willow's telling this story now. Why do you think she's telling it? And so yeah, that was kind of a basic actor process, but it was really, really helpful, especially for Willow, to have these different extremes and shave that down and then figure out where the center was. And then in which scene would she be on this side of the spectrum? And then the next scene, is she on this side? So that was a lot of fun to play around with. And
I'm guessing Alan was encouraging of that kind of experimentation.
He very much was, which was a lot of fun.
You gotta, if you don't trust each other, it's a little hard to be creative.
John, you just
that was a big thing in the beginning. Was Alan really wanted to develop a level of trust between him and the actors, so that the process could go really smoothly, and he would know how to communicate with us effectively on what he wanted. And that really helped. That was extremely helpful, because I think we had a few moments, Alan, where you would just kind of give me a look, or you just say like, okay, I want ABC for this scene. And I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's do that. And I think that's because we had established a really big foundation at the beginning of the process, and it really helped keep everything even as it went on.
Absolutely. H, what was your approach for the music direction of the film?
One thing that you mentioned, that the Alan and Avai talked about Hitchcockian aspect of the film. So when we were initially discussing the approach and direction of music, all three of us agreed that the one thing that Hitchcock is the most associated with is Bernard Herrmann's strings. So I think there was that became a primary instrumental motivation in a sense, for the score in the arrangement. But I then, I allowed myself a little bit of a freedom there to separate Willow from all of that and give her maybe a different kind of an instrument that would lead her theme, which became this beautiful piano theme in the beginning, and then eventually, that gradually throughout the movie is getting out of the tune. I'm not going to give anything away, but due to circumstances in the film. So it essentially, the whole direction of the film was giving each character, as well as the location itself, its own theme that would support them throughout the film, making those themes and those leitmotifs correspond with the events and the story itself. Whether that's with Furman or Silas's case, it starts in a very playful, rhythmic, in a major key, and then gradually over time, it goes to a complete opposite. And I think that's on top of all of that, bringing in the level of suspense associated with the location itself, and those beautiful drone shots of the mountain and of the forest and whatnot, and giving them that kind of like a breathing Hitchcockian string theme was another aspect of the music direction. All in all, it was a lot of fun to do.
And yet it seems very, very, what's the word? I mean, you're there, you look at scenes again and again and again. Do chords come to you? Do instruments come into your head? Is it a collaborative process where you go to Alan and Avai and, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? How do you get a musical character, on top of the actual character? And
Well, I think, first of all, I do want to thank both Avai and Alan for trusting in me that I can deliver music score for the film, but as well as giving me the freedom that to go in there and do what I think would be fitting for the film. I consider music a element of the film. I don't compose for the sake of the music. I compose for the sake of the film. And whether that scene needs music or it doesn't, whether it needs a moment of silence or whatever instrumentation goes in there, it's all for the sake of the advancing the narrative and enhancing the film itself. We want to end with we don't want to feature one thing in a film. We want to end up with a coherent vision that someone is going to be enjoying watching so that being said, there's always when I watched the movie for the first time, the music is already in there. I release it. I give it. I bring it out. Every director shoots a movie, and this was very apparent in with Alan and his style. Shooting a movie, and maybe even unconsciously not really thinking about the music at the time of shooting, but there's a certain rhythm to it. There are visuals that are bringing that music to the that already contain that music. And then once that's all put together, the composer is brought in this particular case, me, I sit down and I watch it and I hear it. I see, I can sense it. And then it's just a matter of really figuring out which instruments are the best one that are going to give the life to that music. But it's already in there. You just have to find it.
There's a very powerful scene toward the middle-ish, toward the end, where our villain is following the hikers, and he's going kind of nuts on them. And, there's been music, great music all the way throughout. And he turns to Willow and gets close to her and says something about you don't know what the danger can be right in front of your face.
Mm.
And there's nothing, no music, it's silence.
Mm.
How did that scene come to play?
Yeah, I think that's I mentioned last night during the Q&A, that was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Because of the way it was shot, and because of the way Bryn brought so much to that character, and it was such a powerful moment. And as a composer, sometimes, well, not sometimes, but there are moments where music is where silence is stronger than music. And silence for me is part of music. I mean, it is music. I mean, it's if you use it at appropriate time, it can be so powerful and so beautiful and just brings so much intensity to when placed properly. And that was one of the moments where I thought it just fits beautifully. There wasn't really nothing to do there. It resolve it to that particular moment, and then just let it breathe, and let the image and the actor take over, and that's exactly what happened.
Avai, can you talk a little bit about the relationship between producing and cinematography? Let's wear the DP hat. What kind of a look were you looking for? You talked last night and other comments about, boy, the sun up there on top of Mount Lemmon, that's a real challenge to deal with the sun. How did you deal with the sun? In terms of the look that you wanted, did you use a lot of filters or scrims or stuff? How did you handle the cinematography challenges?
Yeah, I got into making movies because I really liked photography, and once I could get to equipment where I could make my photos move, then that was just really exciting to me and opening new dimensions of what I can do with my art and what I want to be doing with my time and my energy. I really think that this movie, 8,000 Feet Up, marks a significant stepping stone in my progress as a cinematographer. And that was one reason that I really wanted to work with Alan on this also, because when Alan and I worked on something previously a few years ago, he really pushed me and he made me work really hard because he had all these really complicated ideas, and I had to figure out how to make his complicated idea a reality while also looking really good. And it was I could feel the growth in myself as a cinematographer working with Alan and when he pushes me. So I was really excited about doing more of that. And I think this is noticeably, if you watch my previous movies and then you watch 8,000 Feet Up, I think I can see a huge difference. And I've had other people tell me as well that they can see the difference. And I really wanted to showcase what I had learned since the last movies, and also, learn even more from working with more people this time. As far as dealing with the great outdoors, it's great because the sun is the most powerful key light I've ever used. But it's also frustrating because it's so powerful. I don't want it to go like directly onto what I'm looking at, or I'm going to get a bunch of harsh shadows. So in a lot of instances where we were shooting closer or where we were in the trees or something, we could set up scrims and diffusion, and we could bounce the sun in the direction we wanted to go. But there were other scenarios where it's like, well, we have to be literally on the top of this mountain, and there's like no trees or anything above us because we're on the top right now, and we need to not have harsh shadows. What can we do? We have to shoot wide. So if we set up diffusion with, we can't bring a 40-foot crane up to the top of Mount Lemmon. So then we basically got a little creative with the direction that people were facing, because if you can place the sun behind your actor, now the harsh shadow would be on the back of their head where we can't see it, and their face is just more diffused because the main light source is behind them to begin with. So we did a fair amount of, like, we'd shoot one actor and then we'd cheat everyone like 35 degrees, and then we'd light and shoot the other actor. It just kind of depending on the sun. There were a lot of instances where we were able to do two cameras at the same time, but there were just as many instances where that was not a practical possibility because we didn't have big enough crew or big enough equipment to really control the sun the way that a really high budget production would be able to. But I was really proud of what we were able to do with what we had. I think we nailed what we needed to nail, and we all pulled together, and it was work, but yeah, we got it done, and I'm really proud of how it looks and what we did.
Avai, what kind of cameras did you use?
We used the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K, which it's really affordable, and yeah, it looks good.
Now, I know a producer is kind of a money guy and the cinematographer is a creative guy, and the cinematographer says, I need 10 of those. And the producer says, no, we got 2 of those. How did that play out?
Yeah, that was, I really rely on spreadsheets, like how in debt do I want to go? What can we do with what we have? I think because I was a cinematographer first, and I ended up becoming a producer just because I wanted to get projects going so I could then be the cinematographer of those projects. I definitely want to do things that I can make look really good. But then, yeah, I also have to balance that, like, how much can I ask for? What kind of favors can I call in? Can I borrow equipment that other people have? And it was great because I own some equipment, sure, but we used a lot of borrowed equipment from other people. So that was really helpful, that we were able to make those connections and utilize things. So yeah, it's definitely a bit of a challenge because, you know, if it was 2 separate people, it would be a longer process. I guess by having one person be the producer and the cinematographer, it's a really short conversation because I know how much money I have and I know how much, like, how where we can go on things. And I'd written a budget for the movie, and it was literally just that, was a budget. It wasn't money. It was a spreadsheet saying, if I had this much money, here's where I would spend it. And we tried crowdfunding for 1/3 of that goal, and we crowdfunded 1/3 of what we had asked for. So we raised about 1/9 of the budget. So there's a lot of things that I wish we had that we couldn't have, working on 1/9 of the budget that I'd written up. But I still wanted to do it, and I talked with Bryn and I talked with Alan, and I was like, do you guys still want to do this? We very briefly had an exec producer on board who wanted to fundraise all the money, and that's why I wrote the budget in the first place, because they were like, how much money do you need? So I needed to write out how much I wanted. And the executive producer ended up dropping out, and I still wanted to make the movie, and Bryn still wanted to make the movie, and Alan still wanted to make the movie. So we found other people who would still make the movie, and we made the movie.
Alan, maybe you can take us into questions from the audience with this question.
Sure.
What were the biggest challenges in the movie that you faced? What were you most pleased with? And at the end of the day, what did you really learn at the end of the process, at the end of the day, as a director?
Well, I would say the biggest challenge, all right, so there's 2 challenges. Both of them are things that you can't really control. And that was 1, the elements, and 2, traffic. So first of all, it's not quiet in the woods. You're gonna go shoot up in the woods. The wood is not quiet. The wind is not quiet. So location sound was a real problem. And so when you're standing in the woods and the wind is blowing, it never blows consistently. So your sound, your ambient sound from shot to shot is going to be different, and doesn't matter how much wild track you get, it's going to be different, and it's going to make things difficult in editing. You can't control when you're shooting in a campsite. You have no control over the other campers. So we and man, there were a lot of campers up there when we were shooting, and so, you know, someone decides they want to listen to country music at full volume a few campsites away. Well, I guess we have country music playing in the background of this shot, kind of thing. So, and then we did some other shooting in a remote location, and I mean, the cars would not stop driving by, and I thought Bryn was going to kill me every time I said hold for car, because that's hard on the actors trying to perform. So that was a big challenge, was those elements that we can't control. The second thing that I would say is that this is a very dialogue heavy movie, and I'm not accustomed to working with dialogue heavy films. I'm more of a less is more guy, but this screenplay is a giant sandwich from a dialogue standpoint. That's a lot to put on an actor. And I also had to find, or like, how am I going to make, because a lot of dialogue can be very easily, it can tip towards exposition, and maybe too much information. Maybe unless it's really interesting dialogue, you can bore the audience. And so I had to really work with the actors so we could dig into this dialogue, which was more or less, and Daniel talked a little bit about it last night, was they sort of provided the scenes, they sort of provided the dialogue. And then I worked with the actors, and we figured out how we molded that dialogue, how we paced it, how we made it, we really dug deeply into it and made it interesting to listen to. And more importantly, not just listen to, but interesting for the actors to play. Instead of just reciting dialogue, we needed to make this a conversation, that they were listening to one another, and then the audience was listening. So those are probably two of the biggest challenges. What I learned, my biggest takeaway from this is that I am now absolutely confident that, particularly with this team, we can make a great movie. 100% confident that moving forward, if we make another movie, we will make another great movie. I also learned that nano budgets and micro budgets are really, really difficult. And I envy my colleagues who have resources to work with, because while it forces you to be creative, and I think that brings out great things, there is something to be said to having access financial resources to make things run a little easier, a little smoother, for sure.
Thank you so much, everyone. Here's a question. Now, this maybe has a little edge to it, but do you feel that just because you are using local talent, does that make it okay to pay them very little? Isn't the goal to progress so that you can pay off all your cast and crew a legitimate wage? Is there a goal to work towards to get to that point?
I would say yes. So that's an interesting question, and it's an interesting balance, because that's kind of where, in the position I was at, I was trying to get this feature film off the ground that had a 7-figure budget and a high 6, low 7. And I mean, so I put all my energy into trying to raise money to make that film, and years go by and it doesn't happen. Not only forget that nobody's getting paid, nobody's doing anything. Or we find a project that we can do, we get the resources we can, and we make the best possible movie that we can. So we move to the next step, and hopefully we get people interested who go, I like what these guys are doing. They've proven themselves. I'm going to invest in them, and I'm going to get a return on that investment, hopefully. That enables us to do that. So no, I don't think the point is that you use local actors just so you can keep using local actors and not pay them. The point is you've got to have a foundation to build from, and you moved with the goal of growing and getting bigger.
Avai, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think Alan said it perfectly. From if I put my producer hat on, I wrote a budget, and when I was talking with an executive producer about working with everyone, the plan was to pay everyone SAG scale, and that would have been fantastic if we could have come up with the money. And so that was plan A, was get money, give people SAG scale, even though we're non-union, just because, yeah, it would be great to pay everyone. But when the money goes away, do we get into another situation where now this is one of yet another movie where if only we had money, we could make a movie? Or would we at least like to make a movie even if we don't have the money anymore?
Bryn, would you like to weigh in on that?
Yeah, well, Avai and Alan were very upfront about the financial situation. You know, it wasn't like they kept that information from us. And we were unaware. We all knew the situation. And I think Avai and I had a Zoom meeting where he asked me if I still wanted to do the project, and I very much did. Because I really wanted to make something, especially during COVID when artists weren't making anything. So I definitely still wanted to be a part of the project. And, you know, I hope that people invest in it and continue to invest in this team. But yeah, we all knew the financial situation going into the movie.
Sure. H, your thoughts on this issue?
You see, one thing as a composer, I would love for every movie that I work on to go and have a symphony play the score, and have a 60 plus people in and conduct them, and have someone transcribe the score and all of that, and that's beautiful, that's great and whatnot. But some if we approach every single movie with that, from that aspect, a lot of movies wouldn't get made. And that's sometimes you see the film for what it is. You recognize the value in it, and you have to take different approaches. And I would say I'm very fortunate that I do have a very good, well equipped studio that I can pull this kind of stuff off. But and that's why I like to look at the projects from a standpoint. Is it a quality film? Is it a good picture? Is it something that I would, once everything is said and done, is it something that I would sit down and watch? And if the answer is yes, I'm in.
John, can I just chime in on this subject one more time? Because this is a hot subject.
Absolutely, of course.
Here's the thing. As a director, I see a lot of audition tapes and I see a lot of reels. And I will tell you, I never pay any attention to the title of the movie, who directed the movie. It doesn't matter what the budget of the clip was from the reel. I'm looking at the actor. I'm seeing how they translate to the screen and whether they're right for the role. And I've had conversations with a whole lot of Arizona actors who have nothing for their reels because they are standing their ground waiting for that paying gig that's not coming. And I'm not saying that it's not coming, but they're missing opportunities to develop their craft. They're missing opportunities to get footage for their reels so they can get that paying gig. So a director can look at the reel and go, oh, wow, this is a versatile actor and they can do a lot and they look great on screen and this is who I'm looking for. And so that's part of that building process. So if people, this is a big issue, and I get in conversations with crew and cast all the time. And again, I am not advocating for not paying your cast and crew. Absolutely, that is the end goal. But sometimes we got to jump in and the team. If we sat around and we that was our approach with 8,000 feet up, we simply would not be having this conversation right now. So I'm going to check that up to a win.
Do you guys feel, all of you, that the tide is turning a bit here in Tucson, southern Arizona, that the climate for production is starting to heat up and stuff is happening?
I do. Yeah,
What-
I don't think
what's going on?
Duster coming to town was a flash in the pan. I do think that the Duster, J.J. Abrams bringing Duster to town, and a variety of other things that are happening now are because I think the pendulum is kind of swinging back, and our value as a filmmaking hub is being recognized. It just took probably some people with a little bit more influence to take that first step coming back, and now everybody else is kind of looking over the fence to see what's going on over here.
I see other heads nodding positive. Avai, what do you see happening?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think as a city and even as a whole state, Arizona has a lot to compete with. I never had really looked into like the demographic statistics of Albuquerque or New Mexico, but we have so much in Arizona that New Mexico doesn't have, and everyone's talking about New Mexico because that's where Netflix is. Okay, whatever. But so when we make movies here in Tucson using Tucson people and Tucson locations, we can show people, look, we've got Arizona, and Arizona has so much to offer, so many kinds of productions. Like off the top of my head, I can think of hundreds of different stories that can be told right here. Yeah, it just comes down to just showing people examples of like, look at this. So what we're doing here, I don't think people in Hollywood are watching trailers for 8,000 feet up right now thinking they need to come to Arizona, but I think it's a necessary step in that direction. And Duster coming here, like Alan was just talking about, that's going to turn a lot of heads. And I think we have the talent, we have the people, we have the locations. It's just a matter of the right people making the right decisions in the right places of power, I suppose. But I definitely feel like big things are coming, and we're not just going to sit around and do nothing. We're going to make awesome movies and try to keep building the hype up, and hopefully we can speed the process along in whatever ways our limited power allows us to.
Bryn, you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely second what Alan and Avai have said, and I do feel like big things are coming to Tucson, and I hope that feeling is accurate, and I do think this Duster project is, like Avai said, going to turn a lot of heads our way, and Tucson used to be a big film city, so I think we have that working for us, and I know that, this team, we're going to keep making movies. We're going to figure out how to make that work. And I'm even in talks with a friend of mine where we had an idea and we want to go location scouting. And I was talking to Avai about it last night. And so even just with this film, I've already become inspired to do more things in film. And I think that's going to happen for a lot of people, and I think it's going to continue to grow. Yeah.
Excellent. There's another question asking, did you guys camp out on Mt Lemmon while you during the course of the production?
Furman did.
So Charles
did.
and I definitely used location scouting as an excuse to go camping again. We used to go camping a lot more when we weren't busy. Then we got busy, but now we can use being busy as an excuse to go camping. And then during the actual production, there were a couple nights where, yeah, Charles or Furman, we would tag team it. Different cast and crew would take turns actually camping to hold our spot. So when we needed to resume filming at the same campsite, we already had someone there claiming it for us. So yeah, there was a lot of camping involved. It was fun. It was a blast.
But I will say that it was nice to come off the mountain at the end of the day. You know, we'd spent the entire day up there filming, and so there was a release driving down that mountain. It was just kind of like, okay, go home, back in my bed. I can relax. I can push the reset button. So when we came back the next day, our batteries were recharged. I don't know that we would have been able to do that had we been up in the mountain and immersed in that, you know, for a couple days straight.
I would be remiss if I didn't, in this conversation that we were having just a minute ago, and at not introducing the IFA into this conversation. And in fact, the whole thing we're talking about here, independent production and resources and the whole gamut of issues around independent production here. Alan, you're on the board of IFA. They're great partners of ours. They've been nothing but supportive and helpful, and it's a wonderful group. Could you maybe do a little shout out to IFA and what are they up to and why should people join?
Yeah, so the IFA has been around for a long time in various iterations, going way back years and years ago. And it was an opportunity for local filmmakers to get together and share ideas and share resources and so on. And so, you know, over the years, I mean, it's been a bit of a controversial organization because over the years it's had difficulty kind of getting its footing, getting traction, and attracting and keeping professionals and trying to find their way. And less of a club and more of a professional development and really creating and fostering an industry. And it's been a kind of a bumpy road over the years. And I think recently with Elisa Cota-Francis taking over the presidential duties of this organization, she has to just get out of her way, because she has a vision and she's going, and you're either on for the ride or you're going to get left behind. And so IFA, I think, has really developed into a professional organization. And that's not to say that to be a member of IFA, you need to be a professional. That means to be in IFA, if that's your vision, then this is the group that you want to be a part of, because we're about fostering that industry, growing the independent film industry, and creating opportunities for everybody, including the people that are learning and coming up from the bottom. We want to bring them up because they're going to be the next generation of filmmakers. And so, yeah, I think they've really gotten traction now. And this is going to be a group that local filmmakers are going to want to be a part
of. We have another question. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on just a second. Beyond the film festival, do you have plans for distribution?
Well, that's an Avai question.
Well, we've submitted to a number of other film festivals around the country. So we're waiting to hear back about if we can get into those. I'll probably do whatever I can to visit in person any festival that plays us. So that's kind of exciting. So we're planning on, just for this first year, doing the festival circuit and just trying to collect some more laurels and just get in front of more audiences and meet more people. I've already had 2 different distributors reach out to me, and then someone else involved with the production made a connection with a 3rd distributor. So there's at least 3 distributors that I will eventually talk with about what they think they can do with our movie and what they might be able to give the cast and crew. So I look forward to having those conversations sometime next year after we've had our run in the festival circuit.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much. We're about at the sunset point here where we're going to have to fade, but I do want to ask the inevitable inspirational question that is your words of wisdom to those. Alan talked about doing everything we can to move people from one point to another, up the ladder, up the chain, get them experience, get them training, get them involved. How do we do that? If there's a young kid out there who listens to a lot of music and he plays the drums or a guitar and he likes movies, what would you say to him or her about getting involved in the business, and what do they need to do to, get serious about motion pictures and composing?
Oh, yeah. John, I really wish there was an easy answer to that. But, the one thing that, I mean, I have been doing this for quite a long time, and as cheesy as it may sound, I love movies. I love music. That's the one thing that really, keeps you going. And I think, when you really have when you really have when you really love something so much, things happen. There are ups and downs. There are sometimes you do something, you do projects that are not not as good as you would want them to be. Sometimes you get to do 8,000 feet up and they are as good as it gets. I think keep at it. Just try to learn as much as possible. Try to watch as many movies as possible. Learn instruments, learn the craft. I think it's extremely important to learn the craft. And we do live in a 21st century where from the technological standpoints, things are great. You have a computer, you have samplers, you have virtual instruments and things like that. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't know how to arrange, or that you shouldn't know how to learn the theory that goes behind the music and whatnot. And combining all those elements together is it's a road, but there's eventually a payoff at the end of that road.
So well said. So well said. Bryn, what do you say to a young kid who's in school? They like to dress up and act and do stupid things and play roles, and do they need headshots? Do they need what do they need to move on in a career in acting and movies?
Definitely get headshots, get a reel together, and be good about keeping it updated. I haven't been good about that in the last year or so. But keep those things updated, be active about looking for projects. But I think probably the biggest advice that I can give, it's okay to, if you aren't ready to move to a huge city, it's okay to take time and feel more centered in who you are. I feel like and I definitely felt it after I graduated college, there's this pressure to just go when you may not be ready yet.
Mm-hmm.
And find your coalition of artists. Find people who nourish you as a person, but creatively as well, and who challenge you to continue to keep making things. It's so important because this is a hard job. This is a hard industry. The business can be extremely cutthroat, and it is really hard to keep going after that. But it is so much easier when you have people with you who you're just like, hey, let's just make things right now. Let's do what we love doing, because this is why we're in the business in the first place. We love doing this. So find your coalition of artists to keep you making things, to keep you love doing what you do.
I have to ask you, you mentioned what a hard business this is. What advice do you have for young kids who get rejected? They're trying out for a role and they got everything put into it and they're so excited and expecting, and nope, it comes down, not you, and move on. How do you handle rejection?
It's hard. And, I would love to say, don't think about it, just keep going. But, there was definitely a point in my life where I was just always, and also ran. I was always almost there, and then someone else would get the role, and it's hard. But I will say, just keep going. And it is difficult, but like I said, find people who nourish you. Find people that can laugh with you about it, or find people that can help you grow. Along with that as well, take audition classes. They are extremely helpful, and the auditions are rough, they're hard, but taking audition classes is extremely helpful in just going into that audition and feeling really good about yourself. Another thing I would recommend, Jenna Fisher wrote a book, The Actor's Life. It is incredibly helpful and has some really great information in there. So I do recommend that to any young actor, filmmaker. She's got some great stuff in there.
Thank you so much. Avai, how do you be a producer? Isn't it all about heavy drinking and and social, taking those big meetings and yacht rides out in the ocean? And how do you get to be a producer in this business?
Yeah. Yeah, there's I don't necessarily want to say there has to be a lot of gin involved. I think that's optional. It comes down to the person. But yeah, it's good to know as many people as you can, and it's really helpful. What I really rely on, I've relied on finding people who are the people who know other people, and if I can find 3 or 4 other people who each know a dozen people, then suddenly I have access to a lot of resources that I didn't have before. So being a producer is a lot of creative problem solving and thinking outside the box and meeting a lot of people and putting the puzzle pieces together in the way where you can get something done and hopefully everyone benefits the way that they want to benefit.
That is so well said. It's networking. You've got to meet people. You've got to connect and just get out there. Alan, close things up for us. What about, how do you get to be a director in motion pictures?
My advice is, and this stands true for all of the art forms in the industry, is learn your craft. It is not just because you have a script and you point a camera and you tell actors what to do does not make you a director. And you learn the craft, practice the craft, go out and make films, go out and make bad films. That's fine. Just get better at it. If you keep making bad films, well, maybe this isn't for you. But if you make something and then you do it again and it gets better, then you're on the right track. But the only way you're going to get better is respect the craft and respect the craft people who came before you by learning the craft. And that's going to take time and that's going to take dedication. So if you crank out a screenplay in 2 weeks, you're not a screenwriter. You're practicing to be a screenwriter. And so that would be my advice is, and this is what, especially what Bryn was talking about, is learning your craft and surrounding yourself with people who share your vision and then going on that journey together. And I'm still a film student. I will always be a film student. The day that I think I know everything, they're probably putting me 6 feet under. I will always be learning the art of directing and the art of filmmaking. Every time I take on a new project, I'm learning something new.
Just excellent, excellent, excellent. You've got to respect the business. You got to learn, be open to learning. Thank you so much for all of your, and Bryn and Avai and H, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this. I hope our listeners have. I hope you guys have. 8,000 feet and up. See it, follow it, love it, respect it. Thank you again, everyone. We look forward to other sessions. Enjoy the remaining part of the film festival. All the best to our panelists and all the best to you out there watching. Thanks again and enjoy the day.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.